This is Greg with GDC Marine, and today we're going to walk you through installing your active target cable guide set. For tools, you'll need a 5mm Allen wrench, some cutters, or a pair of pliers and a knife. So the first step is obviously to install your active target transducer. If you don't have that installed, you can't manage the cable to it. After that, when you pull everything out of the packaging, the first thing you want to make sure of is that your zip tie tips are folded like this. It'll make everything a lot easier moving forward to install the clamps. Alright, so there's two different clamp sizes that come with the kit. The big one, which goes on the trolling motor shaft, and the small one, which goes on the control cable. I like to start down at the trolling motor end. Take your large size clamp and gently flex it to mount over the active target cable. Then take one of your zip ties, and since you've pre-bent the tip, it should very easily slide right through all the way around the channel. Then go ahead and wrap that on the trolling motor shaft and tighten the zip tie down. If you have a zip tie tool, this is a perfect time to use it. There are two methods to use to trim the zip tie. First, I'll use a pair of flush cutters. All you do is simply take your flush cutters, run up right next to the zip tie, and cut it. It'll be nice and smooth. You won't be able to catch anything on it later on. Now, if you don't have a pair of cutters, you can even just use normal pliers and a knife. So I recommend, if you don't have cutters, take your pliers, get right up against the body of the zip tie like that. You want to take it and twist a couple times like that. That'll break the zip tie off. Sometimes you'll leave a little bit of a sharp edge doing that. Sometimes it'll be off clean. If you have a sharp edge, just take your knife right along the body of the zip tie and cut it off flush. Next, you want to move to your second large clamp. I like to put this 4 inches or so right below the pivot point. So same as before, gently flex it to install around the active target cable. Run your zip tie through. And tighten it down. Alright, next we move up to the underhead mount. Now the underhead mount is designed specifically so that you can install it in 4 orientations. 1, 2, 3, or 4. So now the considerations is, in my opinion, you get more protection on the cable by installing it to the inside. However, I think by installing it out and down a little bit, you create a nicer loop in the cable so you're not bending it as aggressively, and subsequently you don't have to leave as big of a service loop down here. So all you're going to do for this is pop it over the body of the cable, put your 2 M8 screws through the holes, and I like to start the spacer. I just think it makes it a little bit easier. Now once you get to this point, you simply line it up with the 2 M8 holes on the underside of the Ghost trolling motor head and tighten in the screws. So I find this next part easiest to do from inside of the boat, but now we're installing the small cable clamps over the control cable. So you want to take your active target cable just like before, install it, slide your zip tie through, and mount it on the control cable. Now it's very important with this first one, because this is the one that controls how much slack you have. Before you fully tighten it, make sure you have a good loop that'll allow it to slide through that cable guide to allow you your control when steering the trolling motor. And tighten that up, snip it off flush, and repeat for the last 4 on the control cable. And this is about how much slack I like to leave on this cable. If you wrap it around the back side and then you leave a nice loop like this, on a 47-inch shaft trolling motor, this seems to be the right amount. As you go up to a longer shaft size on the trolling motor, either the 52 or the 60, you want to leave a little bit more loop just because that gives you the room to adjust the trolling motor up and down. So that's about how much I like to space out the 4 clamps on the control cable. Alright, so this is a little difficult to show on the trailer, but I got a block and I'm good. So when you get the trolling motor down, the way I like to set the cable position is if you run it all the way with the foot pedal forward, where your cable has to wrap here, I like to set it so that it gets that full wrap and I still have a little bit of slack on that side and I still have slack on this side. So now, it has just enough grab up here in the head where it'll slide through if you adjust the height, but it'll just allow it to kind of control the cable as you steer the trolling motor. Now this specific active target transducer I took the clamps off to install today, but they've been running these clamps for about a year now at this point, and there's no wear on the cable jacket noticeable from this clamp, or from this guide. So even though it is rubbing on the guide, the plastic is a soft enough material that it's not eating through the jacketing of the cable. And there you guys have it. If you followed along to this video, you should now have successfully installed your Lowrance Active Target cable guide set on a Lowrance Ghost trolling motor.